all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown. With me for the very first time is our striking cinematographer. Say hi, striking cinematographer. I said very first time, but it's not actually the very first time.
Just first time one-on-one.
Yes, one-on-one. Yes. It's first time as always, but also for the first time. It's complicated. Anyway, Derek, thank you so much. This is so exciting. I'm such... well, you know I'm a huge fan, but a huge fan in particular of the last however many months since we've talked of your work. Goodness gracious. How many explosions did you have to make for Never Stop Blowing Up?
So many explosions. It was when we reuse a lot of explosions, but we use them in different ways. And then there's, of course, the requested button that makes 60 seconds of continuous nonstop explosions that no one can stop, not even me. And so that was lots of explosions.
It was so much fun. Yeah, I have to imagine that season in particular, one of the most demanding in terms of effects going up on the dome. Just, there were so many, lightning and electricity or lightning, whatever it is, the smoke, bullets, everything that Brendan can seemingly compress on any other projection that can pop in. That had to be difficult.
Yes. Yes, and there was it was a long conversation too, and a lot of trial and error and testing to make sure, and knowing what things look good on some backgrounds and don't on others, because they can just all layer up and go over everything. And ended up making a much more complicated version of the system we normally use for projections to allow for that sort of dynamic layering where you could layer on video after video after video without them turning each other off. So you can have a background and you can have fire and smoke and bullets and explosions on top of it, all stacking.
So good.
So had to make a fun new system for that to work. But it meant that we could make really dynamic setups with all those different effects.
Yeah, I have to imagine. Brendan is running the effects board, right? He's got the buttons he's pressing. And I assume you want them labeled so Brennan knows, but not labeled so if a player glanced, they would see and know what it is. That's got to be difficult as well. How do you even manage a system that's like that? Or do you just have to sit Brendan down and be like, all right, these 30 are explosions.
There's explosions, you're going to know it's an explosion, right? And so the explosions have various labels with, a lot of them were just numbered, and then small, medium, large, different variations, and then a bigger one, and the icon gets bigger. So at a quick glance, you can see how big of an explosion do I want, and just hit one of the buttons. And then things like backgrounds are a little bit more vague, so that you can't, from the little tiny icon on the Stream Deck, really tell what's coming up. But we don't put basically any text on the buttons, so no one can just kind of glance over and see what might be upcoming. And then, of course, sit down with Brendan. We look through everything, so Brendan knows all of the tools that he has to play with.
Yeah. And I guess probably helpful. Brennan has the greatest memory that's ever existed in terms of everything. Brennan, I don't understand how his brain works. It's special. But also this season, you're the director of photography or cinematographer, depending on if you want to sound fancy or less fancy, as far as I can tell. We'll talk about what that entails, but sort of how did that come about, of just getting that bump into hey, we also want you to be running cameras as well as the most complicated projections we've ever had.
It started in Fantasy High, actually. So as we're rolling into filming Fantasy High junior year, I'd been on set with Kevin Stiller, who is the traditional DP of the show, and we started having a conversation about it, and he went, hey, I was wondering if you would be interested in potentially also doing some of the direction of photography work, because I've realized that if I got hit by a bus and couldn't come onto set, nobody else in the building has any idea how all of the things working together works. And the next closest person, because I designed half of all of the systems for lighting and projections, was me. He was like, how interested would you be in potentially also doing camera? And I was like, that sounds great. And so throughout junior year, I like shadowed Kevin for a bunch of the shoots and then filled in for the latter quarter of the season. So I was also actually the director of photography for the last 5 episodes of Fantasy High Junior Year as well. And that was kind of my introduction in to it. And then when this season was coming up, Kevin wasn't available, and so it immediately went to me, and I picked up the mantle of directing the photography.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that. It's just like, hey, you're the only other person in the building who might understand this. What if you did it? That's
yeah. And so much of the technology, right? Because it's not just the camera, but it's also the projections, and it's also the lighting, and the lighting being another big thing. Coming from my background as a theatrical lighting designer, I kind of slowly pushed Kevin towards that. I was like, hey, look at these cool systems that are the things that I traditionally use. And so what if we swap out the whole lighting system with a more theatrical system and program it this way? And all of these little things, as I've slowly convinced Kevin to be a more theatrical lighting designer. And so the whole lighting system we were like prepping to replace over to was a system that I designed. And the first time we really used it in full was on Never Stop Blowing Up, which is where you started to see it's the first time where we, in a season, did a different pattern of the triangles of the LEDs on the dome, because we had a system that could actually do that. So it was the first time I got to kind of play with different patterns, even with just the LEDs on the dome walls, because we could.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's super fun. You mentioned junior year.
Yeah.
And I do want to see if we can finally find out what projections didn't Brennan use in junior year. Do you still remember at this point? Or has it now been too long?
In junior year, did we not use anything in junior year? There were things in Blowing Up. There was
maybe that's it was a very vague hint one of the last times that we talked where you're like, Brennan sometimes doesn't use everything we make.
Yes, it was in Blowing Up, because this is the first time that I'm literally opening up a document that has all of my notes. Because we were literally going down a checklist every time watching different backgrounds were used to see which ones were being used. So yeah, because for Never Stop Blowing Up, we made just so much content for Brendan to be able to play with no matter what the players did. Yeah. There is some stuff that didn't get used. There was the really kind of classic action movie, like outside of a mansion, fancy garden with a bunch of flowers and all the greenery. We never got around to. I don't think we did the interior of a stainless steel vault, like a bank vault. I don't think that one showed up.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Didn't have coming up. Inside of a convenience store, grocery store kind of setup. Another classic didn't get around to. And then there is a whole other car chase video background just simply we did not get into, because we had 2 different versions of the car chase, the one that we saw and a different one, and so a whole other car chase is just hidden away.
That's so funny. Yeah. It's I mean especially for a season like this that is so just absolutely chaotic, but also has such strong tropes to pull from, of like a mansion garden party, of just like, preparing for every possible scenario has to be difficult, as clearly it is. I'm really curious. I mean, how was that? I guess a lot of projections presumably are like set and you're good to go once you're on set. Although
depends on the season, and we're constantly similar to Rick and often how they're making new stuff on the fly. If things come up, occasionally we'll make new things. We'll make new versions of stuff and drop them in, especially on set. We need to have at least a little bit of lead time to be able to do that. Versus some things like lighting I can drop in same day. So like we didn't know they were going to the White House. And as soon as they were like, we're at the White House, we ended up taking a 10-minute break. I programmed a red, white, and blue LED look and I just added a new button to the Stream Deck and went, hey Brennan, whenever you want, I got a White House look for you. And so I was able to just build that on the fly with what we got there. But yeah, it's all very responsive to wherever they happen to go with the story.
You didn't expect the finale to be a fight atop the flying White House?
We did not have a White House prepared.
with a vampire president. Oh man, that's so funny. Yeah, I am super curious, like how much, obviously, like how much of like coverage are you getting in the moment is it all just like wide angle and everything is digitally edited in for close-ups, or are you trying to like in the moment be like, okay, like close up on Allie or whomever like is in this like thing?
Yeah, all of our punching in and everything is all digital. And so we shoot just a multi-camera, only operated camera is the DM's camera traditionally. And so we have camera operator on the DM for when they're standing up, which is especially important when they're handing out props, or especially in battles where the DM is constantly standing up. And then the 2 player shots are just lock off wide angles of all of the players and a wider view of the walls that they punch into dynamically in the edit.
Yeah,
so we shoot those
sense,
just at a higher resolution, so they have the room to punch in.
Because truly, what a nightmare that would be if you were like, okay, let's do a close up on Ellie. Oh no, Izzy is crying. Like we need coverage on that. Yeah. I mean, this season had so many props that were just getting chucked about. How's that for trying to like be like, oh, cocaine is being thrown across the room. Make sure like you pan the camera for that. How much prep work was involved in just like, hey, Brennan's gonna be throwing props, be ready?
Oh, almost none. It's improv, and so it's you expect that you don't know what's gonna happen, and we kind of just play around with whatever does. So it's always a fun new surprise when they throw something across the room,
especially if it doesn't get caught. Then someone has to get up and go get it. I mean, it was I should say, like, this season was so much fun. Never Stop Blowing Up. Just like so chaotic. I talked to Carlos before the season started, and we talked about like how when he was building out the cast, it was just like chaos. Like everyone was just like an agent of chaos. Is any of that then reflected in your thoughts, both I guess in terms of projections, but also like filming them, of just like, I don't know what they're gonna do because it's pure chaos in there.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that too is this was a lot more responsive, I think, than we often do, where I was kind of watching for opportunities to play into what was happening. I was doing a little bit more with kind of live dynamic, messing with the lighting. I had different like color, that strong colored kind of side backlight that was all just me kind of manually fading that in and out when it felt like a moment was getting more tense and I thought it could use a little bit more color, and just a kind of dramatic, kind of theatrical lighting. And so all of that was just kind of responding in the moment, not knowing what was going to happen, and just waiting for opportunities where it seemed like it would be fun to throw something in, and just kind of playing with the players.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out so well. I mean, especially in like, I mean, all of that's so striking. I was thinking about like the finale, especially with like that big green light on Brennan, was so striking, and like it's a beautiful season. Congratulations!
Thank you.
I am also curious, like obviously, like obviously you were on set even like at starting when you were doing projections because you needed to be there, but certainly more hands-on when you're also director of photography. How difficult is it for any job when you're trying to figure out what to do and the funniest human beings in the world are being as maniacally wild as humanly possible?
It can get really difficult. There was definitely moments in this season, especially like episodes 3 and 4, definitely I like stand out to me as the moments where I like remember us all like sobbing in Video Village, just absolutely unable to keep it together, not succeeding in being quiet, all just completely laughing because of the sheer absurdity of it. And it gets really hard to pay attention to like making sure that everything is working when you're also like sobbing, crying, tears in your eyes, laughing. So we try to keep it together. It's normally not that bad. When things get really off the rails, you lose focus a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know. Like I talked to Sky as well about like about this season, and they had mentioned, you know, like not being scolded by Carlos, but being like, "Hey, come on! Like you're so loud." Which this season felt like it, just because I think because the players got so giggly, it just feels as it always does when people start laughing like that. Just feels so infectious. I assume that has also been happening in Video Village of just like, Sky started cackling. Now I'm losing it. Just like a domino effect of like trying to keep it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. I am also yeah, I mean, what I mean, so episodes 3 and 4, what was that like on set to be like, it's just wild, like unhinged beyond measure.
I think there's a lot of realizing what this season was going to be, because episodes 1 and 2 was effectively 2 introductory episodes. So you had to introduce everyone to the real life versions of the characters, and then do a second introduction of their in the VHS versions of the characters. And so there's a lot of funny moments and a lot of kind of chaos inherent in that. But after you get through those introductions, they're kind of free to just go wherever and do whatever they wanted. And that's where the chaos started to really ramp up.
Yeah.
and Brennan was just rolling with anything they wanted to do, and giving it back twofold. And so I think that was where we were all starting to really realize just what the tone of the season was going to be, and how exactly it was going to kind of just jump off the rails.
Yeah, which, oh boy, did it ever. I mean, especially thinking of those latter episodes where like people are taking over the DM chair. I'm assuming, like, obviously you knew it could happen going into it. But yeah, what is the prep for that as well, of just like, hey, we gotta track Iffy, Reka, Izzy as they like walk around the table and turn and get to the chair. Is that just another like, do your best to whoever's operating the camera?
Yep, it's that, and it was on me doing, because our lighting is really kind of focused on each individual person and set for their levels, and so it's a rapid point of me flipping some settings on backgrounds and changing things, as well as pulling open scopes on the cameras and looking at lighting and trying to quickly make some adjustments to make sure everyone looks as good and consistent as they normally do when they're in their seat where I'm expecting them to be. So yeah, it's a lot of unexpected little adjustments that we make.
That's very funny. Yeah, sudden lighting changes. That's so funny. And also, like, with those, like, I know you mentioned like the White House, like you took a 10-minute break and you were able to do like red, white, and blue. With those, it feels like you can't take a break, because you don't want the players to have extra time. You want that 60 seconds of panic for the concept of the conceit of the show. So yeah, I mean,
and that's one of there's a couple effects. There's a couple of things that were just my job. That timer was one of them. And so if a 20 happened, I had to get to that page and hit the timer as fast as possible to give them the least amount of prep time possible. We wanted that number, it'd start to count down as fast as they possibly could.
Yeah. So that, if he could only kill 250 million white supremacists, good God. Yeah, it's so funny. I was with Iffy at PAX West, and someone asked him, because like he did that, like the broken, I'm just gonna keep rolling and blowing it up because I can, and see if I can hit a nat 20. And someone's like, what would you have done? He's like, I actually don't think I would have taken the chair. We were in like the very end of the, like, I didn't have anything I wanted to do, which is just another bit of just like such funny chaos to think about how much he rolled to try and get a nat 20, and then potentially would have just been like, but I don't actually want it. Let's go into that theoretical. How upset would you be? Because obviously once Iffy is rolling that many times, you have to assume, all right, I'm going to get ready for the 60s. Like, you're probably ready to punch. Like, one of the few times that you're like, I'm ready to switch lights, I'm ready to punch it. How upset would you have been if you'd have been like, nah, I don't want it?
I don't think I would have been upset, because it would have been really funny.
Fair.
And I think that's really, everything we're doing is to support the funniest thing happening, and like that's what I'm there for. So I don't think I would have been mad at all. I think it would have been a really good bit.
Oh man, we love a good bit. Can I tell you the most amazing thing in the world, and I probably shouldn't talk about publicly, but I'm gonna anyway, is I got to interview a bunch of the Worlds Beyond Number folks, including Brennan, and he referred to me as having top-notch bits, and oh baby, dining out on that one forever. You love a good bit. I guess, I don't know, speaking of a good bit, speaking of the worst possible bit, Tabby. Oh my God, Derek, what's happening?
Tabby! Oh, there's so little I can talk about Tabby yet. We've only just seen him.
But we know that Tabby exists
Uh-huh.
as a projection that is
Yes.
interactive
Yep.
and talks.
Tabby's there.
And Carlos Luna is the voice of it.
Yes.
And is talking backstage to make it talk. At least in terms of, like, not with any like spoilers of what happens with it, in terms of prep when Aabria comes in, and was that I assume Abria's idea from the beginning.
Yep.
What is that process like of, hey, I want a talking magic rock on the table that is a projection?
A lot of exploration. It's a lot of exploration and trying different things and seeing what works. We had a whole separate test day just for that, to like come in and try some stuff and see what works and determine a bunch we didn't like, and like go back to the drawing board and try some different things. Tabby went through a bunch of different iterations. The most haunting possible version of Tabby is the very first thing I sent over in 30 minutes when I got an email going, hey, what would this sort of like live sort of face talking thing, projection rock experience, is that possible? How would we do that? I'm like, that's a great question. And I mocked something up in 30 minutes, and it is the most haunting cutout of my face, like projected onto a like photorealistic on a photorealistic rock. That I just like recorded and sent over in video and went, here's something. Is this anything?
And they said, like, that's too scary.
Yeah, like, that's something. Let's see if we can find a different option. But it started the conversation exploration of like, okay, can we capture live camera, do some sort of face tracking thing, do some sort of live animation, and what are the different tools we could use for that? But yes, it went through many iterations, all of which previous to that were much, much more haunting.
Which is amazing because it's haunting on set. Yeah,
it can be so much more.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm. Any experience with anything like that before? I know you've worked with puppets. It's kind of like a puppet.
It's kind of like puppets. So that was the first thing we said when they were like, "Can we do someone else in a remote location and like putting them in?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can." We did this puppet show thing, and we had someone hidden in the cable closet with a puppet and a camera, where they got to watch what was happening on stage and respond to them. And we routed a microphone over there, and I'm like, "I've done exactly that with puppets before. This is just a digital puppet." So totally super easy. And we have a lot more infrastructure than in the kind of crappy college theater that I was in, that's since been demolished. So so it was a lot easier to route the cameras over and route some audio around and like actually set that up to be something that was more substantial and make it easier to actually see what was happening with the people in the dome and respond.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's so funny for Carlos to be the voice, just as like the person who probably most needs to be at Video Village. One of the top people who needs to be at Video Village has to run away, I assume, to like a closet to be on mic. Although I guess I'm assuming there's probably some ADR after the fact, of like, hey, we got to clean this up a little bit. But because I mentioned I talked to Danielle recently, and she said like we were having a conversation with Carlos like as Tabby, like it's not like it wasn't pre-recorded lines that like Aabria could play one at a time.
So there actually is a lot of pre-recorded.
Okay.
So there's whole chunks of pre-recorded that are in there. That was especially starting out. It starts out all pre-recorded and just kind of paced out, partially so that. Because Tabby, we didn't want Tabby to be as involved at the beginning parts and to start to establish the thing there. It's like, you can't just talk to Tabby whenever you want. Partly for that reason, because Carlos can't constantly be running away or trapped in a different room. So it was like, you can't, if you want to talk to Tabby might be asleep right now. Leave Tabby alone. So there was definitely some pre-recorded at the start. And then, and I think more so even than some of the live stuff. Just especially the stuff that's just more about giving some information to the players, some more kind of setting the scene stuff, but including some kind of back and forth with Aabria that they kind of just paced out the timing of. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm assuming Tabby, short for tablet, a magical stone tablet. Like I've solved that mystery, right? Like that's got to be it. Yeah, I just. I love that it's incorporated into the DM screen, and it just looks like a thing that Rick
Yeah.
and team would do. Like, it doesn't look like this is gonna come to life. Like your eyes are not particularly drawn to it, which is such a brilliant. Like, I know one of the things that goes into the DM screen of like, we're putting in like a thing that your eyes are drawn to because it is the most important piece that we do in terms of like physical set. But also, we can't have you solve a mystery of the game right out the gate because we've made it the center point,
Right.
which is so fun. But obviously, for Tabby, he had to make it into the trailer because it is just too good.
I didn't know whether they were going to put him into the trailer, but I was excited to see him. I was excited for people to get this little glimpse at my little Tabby.
I love it so much. Are you also director of photography on Miss Madge, or
I am? You brought that up, and I looked at it and I was like, my name isn't credit. I was like, did I? And I was like, I totally did. Kevin had jury duty one day, and I filled in for one little chunk as Kevin was at jury duty. So I was a supporting director of photography alongside Kevin Stiller.
It's so good. Yeah. I'm so excited for it. I'm also excited because I called it, and I love to be right. I'm not right about virtually anything, but it was like they were like Dropout was bringing back a lot of Miss Madge merch, and I was like, hey, we know Aabria's coming, because I got that scoop and was pretty jazzed about that, and I was like, and they've brought 2 mugs and they're restocking the shirts. I think we're getting the next season of this. And a bunch of people yelled at me that I was wrong, and no.
Nope.
It's such a fun season. Was the first season when you first came in to D20?
No. So I didn't come in until Ravening War. So Ravening War was the first season that Ruby and I did the projections on.
Because I think it was literally someone behind the screen.
Yes.
Like for the monster in the holiday special, right? Like that's and you came in and you're like, you don't actually have to do that.
There doesn't have to be someone behind the screen, and they're actually like can't be anymore. Is weirdly the thing, because of the way that we do projections now in that way, and just the tight space, you physically couldn't make the shot. So and the shadow would bounce and move in weird ways because there's multiple light sources. So it's a totally new way of kind of doing things. Even if we want to like play around with a similar thing, we have to approach it in totally new ways just to overcome. The more technology you add, the more things you have to the more things you have to do to use it all.
It gets us things like the lawnmower fuckatron, and that's like, okay, I mean, it's worth it all in the end. I don't want a shadow of that rolling around. No. I want to see it on screen. See it
bounce across the screen.
Although having to have someone wear that on their head and walk
would
behind
have been pretty good.
Would have been pretty good too.
We talked about, there was a lot of conversation about that early on for Never Stop Blowing Up that we did step away from, because similar to the conversations about locking Carlos in a room, where like we can't just have 3 PAs on standby for a whole episode where we don't know something is going to happen, for them to go into like a crime scene setting and have people run around the inside with crime scene tape and wrap the dome in it, or like turn off all the lights and come in with flashlights and shine them on everyone. There were all these practical gags that we had like talked about early, where we're going like, this is a totally improvised show. We have no idea when this is going to come up, and we can't have 3 people just like lying in wait just off camera to grab whatever prop comes up in a bit and do a thing.
Oh man, that's so funny. But can't you though?
Maybe. Not yet, but maybe.
Not yet. Yeah. More people need to subscribe to Dropout.tv so the budget can accommodate 3 PAs who are just there for bits.
3 prop gremlins. That's you need. Yeah.
I feel like so many people, if you were like, hey, we're looking for a prop gremlin, we pay minimum. So many people in LA would be like, I'll do that to be on the set of Dimension 20. I would do that to be on the set of Dimension 20. You don't have to pay me. Just let me be there and be a prop gremlin. It's so fun. Yeah, I love like the practical effects of Never Stop Blowing Up. Obviously, were really cool. Obviously, like smoke in the dome, probably another big consideration in terms of shooting. Of like, all right, I know, like obviously you have to consider like what smoke can we pump into a room with a very pregnant woman? Not on top of, obviously everyone else, but like probably special consideration for that. And then also, how long is it going to be in there? How is it going to affect camera and projection and lighting?
Yep.
How much of a nightmare was that for you?
I mean, that's going back to the theatrical lighting side of what I do. I love haze. I love smoke. I use it in my more theatrical stuff all over the place. The light, you don't know the lights are there if you can't see the beams. The smoke is great. We love it. Again, another big thing of playing around, how quickly it comes out of the table, how it's affected by what settings we have the AC on, the different AC units in there, and how it affects airflow in the room, which is, again, always, it's in theaters too. It's the same thing. As soon as the AC people come in and the AC turns on, the haze totally changes, and you have to change all of your programming. So I'm used to that. And we pulled from the same, it's a trick I pulled from 20 Sided Tavern, actually. It's the same little tiny effects fog machine that's in the trick stool in 20 Sided Tavern for the reveal near the ending. And so it's that I took that same bit because I knew how it works and the way that we use it, and just brought it over and went, hey, what if we bought this fogger? And kind of pushed it towards them and went, we can hide this on the table, it'll be great. And so we played around with how to make it come onto the table in a fun way. And it did.
It was one of those things that, like, when I saw the vents on the table, I was like, they got to do something with them, right? Like, you can't just put vents on a table and not have fun in an action movie. I got a perfect transition though. 20 Sided Tavern.
20 Sided Tavern.
Huge news.
Yeah.
Felicia Day, Aabria Iyengar, Erika Ishii. What a monster set of I don't know, they're not called DMs, but whatever they're called, going to the storytellers. I don't remember what they're called. Massive news in terms of like huge people coming into play in that space. How did you get involved? What is your involvement? Tell me about 20 Sided Tavern.
Yeah, so Ruby and I are the projection designers for 20 Sided Tavern. And so we did all of the video elements, the big giant LED wall that's in the back that does all the backgrounds and the combat effects and the health bars and the phone voting and the dice cameras and all of the different, anything that interfaces with video. We did all the design for that. So we were brought in. We were originally recommended for it by Casey McGeorge, who's the scenic.
It's just a slew of Dimension 20 people over there.
So because they were looking for new projection designer and was like, hey, we do literally this thing. And so got to have an interview with them and talk where they just asked us some questions about like, all right, you're in a wizard's tower, and you walk into the room and they're like astral wizard, what's in the room, what do you see in the room? And Ruby and I just sat there and going, okay, we think the room looks like this and here's some things in it, and talk it through, and they went, great, perfect, you can do this. And then went through that whole, and that's basically what the process was us going through and it being like, you walk into this room and us going, all right, let's see what we can figure out what's in this room, and we'll throw it up on the screen behind them.
That's so funny. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I assume, I don't know the last time you got to play in theater space, but I assume very nice to be back in the theater space. I know it's like, you have a background.
It's nice theater. It's actually the first time I've done theater in New York. So it was actually the first time I've been to New York. First time being in New York was there
first
for a
time being
month.
in New York is to go to be off Broadway. Wild.
Yes. And which was 90% being in the theater for 14 hours a day. And then 10% we have a 2-hour dinner break and we're going to run and take the subway down to Chinatown, and we're going to get the most amazing dumplings I've ever had and bring them back to the theater. It was a great exciting time getting to be in the theater again and like have that space and just seeing things at, again, that massive scale, having our giant like 30-foot video wall towering above everything on the stage and seeing things at like that scale, when so much of the stuff we do now currently, like especially for Dimension 20 stuff, is subject to the size of the screen someone is watching it on, right? So which could be a phone. So to have things at that scale where it's like it's in real life and tangible and huge, it's always just an exciting thing to get to see artwork just made that large.
Yeah. That's so fun. Let me tell you, I watch every episode on my television. It's like 70 inches. So I'm getting as big of a home screen experience as I can get. I want to see your projections. I obviously, 20 Sided Tavern doing very well to be able to bring in the big names like that. Yeah, how I don't. I'm assuming obviously you're not there for a lot of it. I guess at all anymore.
Pretty much. Yes,
What?
we're kept abreast of everything that's happening, and as things like this, as we're dropping in new people, they're playing some new characters. We make some adjustments, make some new characters, drop some new stuff in. So we're always tinkering. There's new things that we're kind of playing with and putting into that show too.
Do you get the fly out to be like part of these amazing shows? Like, yeah, come on, 20 Sided Tavern, fly Derek and Ruby out to be.
Not currently.
If you pick one of the three, who do you want to go see? Let's make some enemies today.
I mean, this is an easy thing for me to say, despite the fact that I talked about this show with Aabria, so I've had that conversation. I want to see Erika, because Erika's reactions to things is what I live for. It's so fair. So much of the projections that I make, I'm specifically watching to see how Erika reacts to the reveals. And so, man, I want to see more of that. There's a whole tool set of things to play with in Tavern, and they're so big. I want to see the reactions.
That's, you know what? I was thinking Aabria was my top choice. You've sold me on Erika as my top choice if I can only make it out to one, which I can't make it out to any. But I'm just keep telling myself, like, what if you could just jump to New York for a weekend to go see a show from Austin, Texas. I don't live close.
Right.
Yeah. That's, I mean, no spoilers. How good are Erika's reactions in Mismatch 2?
Oh, great. Amazing. Great. I mean, you already get to see a little bit of the Tabby reaction, which is, of course, I was waiting like with bated breath for. But yes, always such a pleasure.
Yeah. I will say, like, I don't remember Erika's reaction for Tabby because I was so keyed in on Brennan's reaction, because it's the same reaction when he saw Polly the bear for the first time of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it is a range of reactions at the table. You get a range of emotions all at once.
Yeah. Horror, joy, and just broiling envy. Oh man, is it? I mean, it's got to be fun and terrifying to be part of this arms race that, like, every time they come in, they're like, we want something that can up the last one. At some point, it has to stop, in theory. Obviously, you have not hit that level yet. But, like, how much fun is that of, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be a test of my skills.
It's a ton of fun. I mean, like, that's why we do the things that we do, right? Is like that sort of like excitement of discovery and being able to play and find new things and try new ways to do stuff that you don't think that you could do is like my bread and butter and the thing that makes me want to do the things that I do. So it's super fun. It's so fulfilling and exciting, and I love getting to be a part of making cool stuff that people aren't expecting.
Yeah, and I just, like, always so good. And obviously, like, the projections we've talked about have added so much to the storytelling. I genuinely am trying to figure out the last time we talked. I think it was in the middle of junior year. I think it was right after the Vulture Dimension. I think you wanted to wait until after the Vulture Dimension. But that means, like, we didn't talk about The Last Stand, the 1,000 Arthur Egg Forts. That was so much fun. I know Kate said that, like, she drew very few and just, like, copied and pasted a lot. Although there were enough.
There's a lot.
How much fun was that to get to animate Arthur Eggfort's slashing, kissing, screaming, everything else?
Super fun. So again, Kate, wonderful to work with. We brought Kate into Tavern too, along with a ton of amazing artists, but we love working with Kate, and kind of coordinated to divide the Arthurs up into groups, so that we can make them all kind of bounce as little individuals and bring them all to life to make you feel like it's a whole giant crowd of tons of them, and all the little just idiosyncrasies that they each had. But it's super fun. And we love being able to find those things, that the ways to bring the backgrounds to life that feel natural and like they're part of the environment, instead of trying to just like shoehorn in a way to add some movement. Things like that are like a super great way to just add a little bit of that life to it and make you feel like you're in a world that is alive.
Yeah, it adds so much to it, adds so much dynamic. I think the thing that's cool is like obviously it adds a lot for the viewer, but I think it also adds a lot to the people in the dome, which like just ratchets up their performances because they feel so much more immersed into what they're doing. And obviously like the final battle, I don't want to skip over anything, but the final battle was so incredible. I mean, obviously like the set, of course, like of like, oh, we're gonna break apart the original set and we're gonna build it so that it moves now and all that, and then obviously such an important element that turned out to not matter of lava everywhere. Yeah, I mean, how much like how obviously you weren't there at the beginning, but have a fan of the show. How much of like that nostalgia did you feel as you're like, oh, we're taking the original stuff and we're making like the present day what we can do with like maximum effort?
Yeah, I mean, it's both super exciting and a huge honor, right? To dive into the third installment of this series that means a lot to a lot of people. And it is the like foundation of what the show was, and was the first, obviously Fantasy High was the first thing I saw of Dimension 20 before I was involved with it at all. And so it's super exciting and a huge honor to be able to play in that space and to bring something to it, and to like add our little touch onto what more people are seeing and are excited about. It's great. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, it's just everything in junior year was so much fun. Obviously, like so many amazing projections, as well as like the maps. But yeah, then obviously we graduate into even more projections. Yeah. Don't want to ask spoilers, but I'm assuming it is not as many projections in Mismatch 2 as there are in Never Stop Blowing Up, just because like how could there be?
It's not as many. I mean, look, there's a lot of individual explosions in Never Stop Blowing Up. There's also a lot of backgrounds. There's a lot of,
but there is a lot.
There's a lot in Miss Mag too.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. Yeah, I know, like, obviously, maybe you know the answer to this question. Well, I guess you only subbed in one day, but you were still there. 11 episodes. What happened? Was that the plan, or did something go wrong?
And this is, I feel like this is the case a lot of the times too, right? Like, I felt this with, we were really pushing the overtime wire on the end of Fantasy High Junior here as well, getting through the end of it. And it was just, the determination was made that it was the right number of episodes to tell the story that they wanted to tell. And luckily we have the room and the grace to be able to take a season and make it the length that we want it to be to tell a better story. And so that's just, it's the number of episodes we needed to tell the story.
I'm excited about it. It was very surprising. Like 11 episodes. I was like, that's not a number they've ever done before.
Right.
Like, that's unusual.
It's a fun, but yes, it was not originally 11 episodes, but it became 11 episodes.
Yeah.
And we put a lot into that 11th episode.
I can't wait.
It is a beefy episode.
God, that's so good. Yeah. It's, obviously thinking of how far it's come from the first Misfits and Magic, which I know like you weren't there yet for, but like thinking about like, all right, it's the first guest GM. It's like first show back from like pandemic lockdown. It's it's all these things. We're gonna give 4 episodes, presumably because we're like, will people watch this if Brennan isn't at the like head of the table? A resounding yes. And now to like get to come in and have, now our second, I guess juniors, not the sequel, but like second sequel season of the year, it feels so special of like how much of an expansion it has gotten. I don't have a question here, but is it special? Is it special? Yeah. Was it special?
It's absolutely special. Like I mentioned about junior year, the like ability to come into a space that has a story that people have seen and care about and love, and be able to like help tell the next generation of that story and the next kind of installment of it. Super fun, super exciting, and a huge honor.
Yeah, and now getting to tell the next generation of Misfits and Magic,
Yeah.
a thing that I think is going to be really fun. I'm excited to see the world that Aabria has sort of built out in terms of, like obviously moving just fully out of the school, which I think is great, of just like, hey, we're out in the wizard world now. And magic is real. What are we going to do? Seems super delightful. Obviously, wind plays a lot into it.
Yes.
I assume that means you get to make a lot of emotions in your projections because there's wind all the time.
Yeah, big storm.
Great. Yeah. Obviously, I know we talked Vulture Dimension last time. Windier setting, Misfits and Magic 2 or the Vulture Dimension?
Oh, 100% Misfits and Magic 2. We
Okay.
kept the movement pretty tame in the Vulture Dimension. We got some exciting storm sequences in Miss Mag 2.
Oh, that's so exciting. That's so good. Yeah, I obviously like everything is it feels really good. Obviously we've got, like a bunch of stuff still, I mean, well, I guess always stuff coming, but like the only thing that we have that we know about is Dungeons and Drag Queens 2, which filmed in like Mayish, I think, based on an interview with Brennan, not any like insider information. But obviously like as I looked at Allison, has like a resume updated of like, I'm working on these seasons, just like 20, 21, 22, like just like, and it's like, well, yeah, of course, like they're gonna keep making the show. Everyone loves it. Yeah, what has it been like even since like Ravening War? Since Ravening War till obviously now, what I'm assuming several seasons already shot. Like, how much have you seen expand on besides just other than just like what you can do, but just like what the shows are like what you're expected, what everything that you can do, how much have you grown in that time period, even just a few years?
Oh, a ton, right? Like, especially because we push the bounds of like what the projection system can do every single season, and then along with the direction of photography stuff and updating the lighting system and going into more effects lighting and theatrical lighting and making all of that way more complicated, and starting to play with projection mapping, and more like kind of like physical effects, kind of animatronics and fog and like all of the different things that are happening at the table that interface with the technology side that we play with over at Video Village. It's constantly evolving and changing and becoming more and more, and it's super exciting to see like the possibilities and what we might do in the future.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I'm curious, did you use Kevin's super special mini rig to do the hero shots for the MacGuffins, or was that just shot on regular?
That was just shot with the camera. We propped up a tripod really high, and it was all shooting after the last episode in like a couple of hours, where we were like, we gotta go. We've been here for so long. We're gonna rush through these. It was me and Shabak just sitting there going, what are all the things we need to look at? All right, we're gonna go through them. I got 30 seconds to light it. We'll roll in it a little bit and then we'll go on to the next thing. And just jumping through a bunch of different quick shots of all the different lights flipping on and off and all the MacGuffins and some things on the screen and some things with the smoke, and just like, what are all the things that post might want to play with that we can shoot in like an hour, and we're just gonna bounce through them as fast as we possibly can.
Funny, what a way to end Shawbuck's 200th episode on 20 of just like,
so exciting.
All right, we got an hour, just like, how much can we do? But yeah, how cool was that to be on set for like 200th episode?
It was great. It's like such a huge celebration. We had cupcakes for Shabak. We had a slate special for him that we used when we were filming it. That isn't a crazy thing to have this thing that says Michael Shabak's 200th episode and then says director of photography and then my name. Like crazy honor, like crazy thing. And again, so I love Shabak and I'm so eternally grateful for how welcoming he is and bringing me in and making me feel welcome and comfortable, and empowering me to come into the role of director of photography, and work more closely. And just, it's such an amazing set to be on, and I love everyone there, and Shabak is just a huge factor in that the environment and the presence and just the way that it feels to be on set.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, and again, I keep saying everything is a huge honor, but it was a huge honor to be able to be there for that milestone.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, especially considering like Brennan hasn't been there for 200 episodes. Like it's very cool that like that has happened. I was also thinking of like I haven't interviewed. I have not interviewed Shawbach, and one of the reasons why is he's so thoughtful that he wants the questions beforehand,
Yes.
so that like if you ask him like something, he makes sure that he has a list of like names of people he can thank. And I'm so bad at writing questions, like because like my notes look like this. Like you can't ask me to send you my questions beforehand. I have things on here that are like Tabby ! Oh no! Like that's my note. Like I can't send that to Shawbach and be like, can you think of what I'll ask you in the moment? I don't know what it's gonna be. So I have been too intimidated to ask for a Shawbach interview yet because I'm so unorganized. But he seems very lovely.
Yes.
Derek, thank you so much. I just have one more question for you.
Yeah.
When will we see you standing awkwardly in the background of a behind the scenes again?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably soon. Probably very soon.
One of my absolute favorite things in the world is like when the behind the scenes starts, we're like, all right, where's Derek? Got him. Like there they are, like standing, like just like standing in the background, and then you eventually posting on Instagram being like, why am I always in these shots?
I was in so many of the shots, and I was wearing such a like brightly colored shirt that on the day they happened to be filming that, I'm like, man, I'm so noticeable. I stand out every time, and my friends send me a message every single time to tag me and be like, we spotted you, and I'm like, I know.
I love it. I love seeing people I know in the background. It's exciting. If the folks on the internet want to find you and follow you to see incredible stuff from behind the scenes, presumably we'll have some Tabby stuff after we meet Tabby in the season. I'm betting you got some great behind the scenes nightmare things to share.
Yeah, maybe I'll show that original, absolutely haunting my face on a rock.
Like I'm clipping that part and this part out and putting it on TikTok. People will demand your face on a rock. But yes, where can people find you if they want to follow you on the internets?
Yeah, I am Derek C Design, basically anywhere that you can find people on the internets.
Amazing. Derek, thank you so much. This was so delightful. Yeah, that's it. I still haven't learned how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.